Would you like the freedom to work when you want, for how long you want, on what you want, and where you want? What life choices might lead to this kind of lifestyle? Well folks, Michael here, and in this video I'll tell you why I'll never work a traditional 9-to-5 job, and how I've more or less managed to do this ever since leaving secondary, or as you say in the US, high school. And if this lifestyle is something you'd like to copy, it's my hope that this video inspires you. Just a little background. Since I was in high school, I really didn't feel like I had a 9-to-5. You know, high school, you go in the morning and you come away in the late afternoon, early evening. For us, it was like about 8:45 until about 4:30. And as I went on, it kind of went a little bit longer, maybe 8:30 in the morning until about 5:30 in the evening, I think towards the end of high school. Now, when I went to college, that completely changed. I think I was down to somewhere between 9 and 15 hours, usually about 12, 13 hours what I had per week in terms of showing up for classes, which was a big difference to the 35, 39, 40 hours we had before. College was my first taste of this much more relaxed life. And of course, when college came to the end, I didn't really want to leave it. Part of my career choice was to continue in higher education, and in particular to continue in academia. So after undergraduate, I came out in the best possible time, especially as an economics and mathematics major. I came out in 2008, right at the heart or the epicenter of the global financial crisis. And in Ireland, we were not absolved of the crisis. So I continued on into graduate school, pursuing a master's at first, followed by further study, and that would end up leading to a PhD. Now that took many, many years, and frankly, I think that my parents at the time were just glad that I finally had finished school. You know, I wasn't far off halfway to retirement before I actually got a proper job. Now, that's a little bit of an exaggeration because, of course, I had to work temporarily during college and during grad school as well to a certain extent. So I did have brief periods where I worked for a few weeks doing internships, etc., and doing certain paid gigs, be they in stockbrokers or be they in think tanks, consultancies, etc. Just temporary work for a few weeks here, a few weeks there. After graduate school, I was lucky enough to land a job in academia as a college professor. And so I continued that route, and I was fortunate enough to ultimately get tenure. Now, the life of a student and the life of a graduate student and the life of a professor is remarkably similar. For some of you that might go to college, it's kind of similar to that. You just extend college years for the rest of your life. So you have a little bit of keeping yourself young to a certain extent. Life as an academic, you have a lot of time. So this may not be good for everyone. You really do need to be imposing your own discipline, being self-disciplined, because you will have time independence. Not so much geographic independence. You normally means you got to show up for class, you got to show up for various events, although the geographic independence is starting to vary now with remote online work, online presentations and research, sometimes online teaching. But you do have a tremendous amount of time independence. So you have a lot of free time. As long as you get your tasks done, that's the main thing. So there are very few hours where you actually must be physically present, either in front of a camera or on a stage, etc., or in an audience, etc. The point is you need to get the job done rather than, as we say, bum on seat for the particular hours. One of the beauties is it's quite a high hourly rate ultimately that you're getting because you're not really there all the time. And that rises as it takes less and less of your input time over time to produce the same or better results. That could be with teaching, that could be with research, that could be with service to the profession, to your department, to the college, to the university, to the media. These skills improve, and so it takes less and less time to prepare or to do. Now, for those that are uninitiated with it, it might seem like, oh, these people never work. Not quite. To prepare for 1 hour of teaching when you first start could take 10 hours just to give 1 hour of teaching. So that gives you some idea. And if you're teaching 4 hours plus a week, That could mean that you're spending 20 to 40 hours a week preparing, in addition to other things that you're doing. You're usually working almost like a lot of other people in, let's say, banking or hedge funds, etc. When you first start off, there's long hours, much like in being a doctor, etc. It's just that you're not physically present. You don't really see under the iceberg, under the water. There's a lot under the water that the public doesn't really see. So you do spend a lot of time, but that changes over time as you become more efficient and you're able to prepare lectures, prepare research. Also, your portfolio grows, so you no longer need to, if you're coding something, you've got a lot of legacy code you can use for future projects. If you're teaching something, you have some overlap after the first semester you teach something where maybe you really invest a lot of preparation or prep time. So over time it gets easier. This is the life as an academic, and you really are getting a high hourly rate that kind of rises over time. Now your salary might be stagnant, but in terms of per hour, as you're not needing to spend as much time over time, that can come down somewhat. Now you can deliver the same quality or even better quality results with less time. That's the whole point. You become much more efficient, much more effective at your job as you get on. When I compare to, let's say, something like private equity or being in hedge funds or investment banking, the hourly rate there can be quite low, especially if you're working 60, 80, 100 plus hours a week. Ultimately can be quite low relative to academia. Ultimately, academia can be extraordinarily high hourly rate when you actually break it down eventually. What I ended up going into was more becoming an entrepreneur, business owner, investor, going away from just the time freedom. Again, there's also task freedom. And again, like academia, you get to work on your own research because you do have a certain amount of that academic freedom to work on your own research. But being an entrepreneur, there's a certain amount of task freedom because ultimately you're the one that decides the tasks that you work on, the videos that you create, the way that you do up a real estate project, the particular watch that you're going to buy and you're going to try to flip. If you're an investor, it's the ultimate, like you're really getting towards the end stage. And of course, the closer you are to that, the less stress. It's typically better taking on your own stress by jobs you give yourself than stress that you take from others telling you what jobs to do. So it's easy for me to work more than 100 hours a week at something I love doing. It's like a hobby. Some of you, it might be computer games. You could probably knock yourselves out playing computer games 10, 12 hours a day if you really loved what you were doing. And the same is true for whatever it is. It could be watching TV dramas. For some of you watching TV dramas, you could watch them for hours and hours a day. It could be going on walks with your friend, chatting with your friends. It could be just relaxing, going to the gym, sitting in a pool, sitting in a bathtub, whatever it is. When you're doing something you absolutely love, for me, I love teaching. I'm passionate about teaching. I also love presenting. I also love researching. I love just learning. I love a new day, every day being a new day. So it's much better, again, taking on your own stress than taking on others' stress. So working for yourself, being your own boss to a certain extent. And in academia, to a large extent, that is the case. But even going further than that, like being an entrepreneur, being even further than that, being an investor, you're really getting not just time freedom, because your time is your own, but also task freedom. You can do what you want. And ultimately, you could be interested in, let's say, the online world, where you do online teaching, for instance, or if you're interested in YouTube, or if you're interested in media, social media, and things like this, if you're interested in the digital marketplace, well, then you get geographic freedom. So you can do it from wherever you want. So you could actually be doing it from a low tax jurisdiction, living in a low tax area, and doing the same work. So you can live in a low cost of living areas. Your cost of living could be much lower. You could save much more of your take-home pay. So these freedoms I would really branch into. You've got your time freedom, your task freedom, and your geographic freedom. These three are ultimate. I'm still working on the geographic freedom, but the time freedom, having a lot of time in the week that's your own. The task freedom, being able to work on what you tell yourself to work on rather than what others tell you to work on. And geographic freedom, being able to work from wherever you want. That way you can live in a lower cost of living area and take home more of your income. And of course, something each of you already can enjoy is the freedom to smash that like button and subscribe if you never want to miss another Investing Professor video. So thank you so much, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.